So yeah, no long-winded intro to this one. You can kind of see what it's about. It's just what I've got over the last 6 months, which is probably since the last time I did it. I think it's a year, but never mind. And just all the kind of, most of them are buys, some are gifted, which I will of course point out when I get to them. And I think I've done much better this year. There seems to be far fewer. A lot of them are eBay buys, of course, which is always the best way to do it. A couple of retail, I think, but all probably in the sales and that. Anyway, I'm rambling. So yeah, I'll get started. So first up, there won't be long descriptions with them all. Is probably the most recent. I don't know if it's going to work out like that, but is Cartier's Bois de Vos Volley Lis Bois de Volley Lis Rose. So yeah, it's obviously meant to be like a flanker of the original, which is a beautiful lily fragrance. It's quite glorious, and I'm not entirely sure. I think that both discontinued. This one I got as quite a really good bargain, in fact. This one has, well, it doesn't have rose in it, which is the other odd thing about it. It's raspberry, and the raspberry is really airy and kind of ozonic and lovely, and it does eventually kind of get a bit of lily, you know, after an hour or so as it moves into it, and it moves similar but not the same to the original. I don't, is it disappointing? Yeah, obviously it was never going to be the same because it's a flanker, but yeah, it's still a fairly nice fresh kind of a raspberry scent, which is pleasant, but it's nothing, you know, banging or anything like that. So yeah, that's Cartier's Bois de Volley Lis Rose. There's a couple that I'll put together that I've done in another video, and I've already spoken about them obviously in that video, so I don't need to go too much into it. But first off is Guerlain's EDT and an older style EDP. As we both know, these are, you know, iconic violet fragrances. They're beautiful, they're powdery, the violet's sweet. The EDT's perhaps a bit more fruity, a bit fresher. There's a kind of more zing in there. There's a little bit of something metallic perhaps that kind of gives it this little bit of a zing. The EDP is richer, it's more floral, the fruits are darker in it, and they're both beautiful, and maybe more vanilla in the EDP, so that's the Guerlain Insolences. Next up is of course the Lolita Lempicas. Again, spoke about them recently, really brief. The EDT kind of is not as dark, not as sticky, not as fruity, although not as darkly fruity. There is a fresh fruitiness there. There's a much lighter kind of airy, powdery musk about it. It's the same violet, licorice, etc. in it, but I'd say the violet is not a sticky violet. It's not a kind of dark one. It's much more of a soft touch of violet, you know, a little watercolour wipe of violet. Whereas obviously the EDP is the one we all know. All them dark fruits, the licorice and violet again. It has it does also have a muskiness in it. Maybe the EDT is a little bit slightly soapy. This one doesn't have that. It just stays beautiful, dark, rich, again drying down to that lovely Lolita Lempica musks that they kind of have. What more do I need to say? So the Lolita Lempicas. Next was a stupid blind buy, which turned out alright actually, and that's Amouage Myths, man. This is it is quite tricky in the beginning. It's quite a lot, and it's quite a lot of chrysanthemum in them, which can be quite difficult for some people. I suppose like lilies are flower of death, chrysanthemum is other cultures. I like them, but then it kind of, what comes through is kind of sweet resins. And even more of all this, the more I've noticed the kind of slight diorama irisiness about it, and that kind of makes it very rich. But the main game of this one is ash and smoke, and my god, it is very ashy and smoky to begin with. Proper charred, like Amouage kind of thing. And that kind of envelops it all. That does ease off a bit. The iris smooths it. It's just a really, really good fragrance, I believe. Don't quote me, maybe it's one of the discontinued ones, of course. So that's Miss from Amouage. Next is Petals de Cashmere from Fragrance de Bois. This is the first one that I've really kind of loved. It does have some similarities to other ones, like Rosia 51 and things like that, but it's basically, it's like a pink petally rose, lots of florals, lots of petals. It's very soothing, it's quite light and refreshing. It's obviously a bit of musks in there, the smooth woods. I think it might be sandalwood, but it's not a milky, lactonic, awful sandalwood. It's just smooth, and it's just a really, really enjoyable fragrance. There might be a hint of raspberry or fruit or something in there to give it more of that kind of pink kind of feeling. Yeah, so a very enjoyable kind of pinker, petally, but fresher one for all the years round, really. I don't think it's too heavy. It does last. You don't want to overspray. It does last, but if you're sensible, it's not a choking one. So that's Petals de Cashmere from Fragrance. Next is the little indie one from To the Fairest, which is a small British indie brand, and they have quite a nice range actually, but this was the one I kind of fell in love with, and there was a little sale on, so I snapped it up, and that's Elan Vital, which is ultimately, it's a very green scent. It's green, it's woody, it's got that kind of pharmacy medicinalness in there. There's no licorice in it, but it does have that smell to me. It's got the beautiful thick green notes, but fresh, with nettles, which we all know they smell good, and it kind of transports you back in time to them days when we used to, I don't want to say play in nettles, wasn't that stupid, but you know what I mean. And it's just it's a gorgeous green, nearly aromatic, dark forest kind of fragrance. So that's Elan Vital from To the Fairest. So next I also did a little kind of mini haul, quite literally minis, of the Kyalis I hadn't tried. So first is Vanilla Royale Sugared Patchouli, which is pretty much like it sounds really. There is some patchouli in there. It's kind of a bit brown sugary vanilla. It's got a bit more, well, that was the point, wasn't it? A lot more oomph and muskiness, and the patchouli gives it a lot more texture than the original vanilla. It's got little bits of sweetness in there. There's obviously more woods in there, etc. It's yeah, it's really quite lovely actually. It's got like, I wouldn't call it one of their Middle Eastern style ones, but it does lean that way with just everything. It smells very golden. So that's Vanilla Royale Patchouli. Next one I hadn't tried is Elixir. Now Elixir was a surprise. It's like this beautiful sweet apple, like a red apple. It's got a kind of red smell running through it. Again, it's quite musky, there's a rosy feel about it, and it also is a sandal. There's something a little bit creamy with a fruitiness as well, which gives it this kind of really smooth texture. And when that sweetness dies down, more of them smooth woods come through, and again with quite a divine muskiness. And it's kind of like, I've kind of described it as being like the sister of Pink Diamond pink pepper diamond. That one, I'm not good with these names, am I? Because there's too many words. But yeah, it's like a sister of that, but it's kind of a little more actually darker, and the sweetness is a little richer and plummy sweetness. I'm not sure if there's plum in it, but it's got that, you know what I mean. It's a little more of a purple red. It's not a purple fragrance, but a purple red. And next is the pistachio one. We'll just call it that. All the names will be everywhere anyway. But the pistachio one is not what you'd expect. It does open up green. You'd probably get a little bit of pistachio in there, but it's primarily quite lovely. It's quite soft. It's got a little bit of a kind of gourmand feel. What the hell's that? It's got a little bit of a kind of gourmand feel, but then it comes through, and the creaminess isn't like an ice cream or anything like that. It's just a vanilla, and that kind of freshness going through it and all of that keeps it from being sticky or over the top or too sweet, and it dries down quite soft and mellow. Again, I think this is another one with the old sandalwood in, perhaps, in the base, and it's just lovely. But what it was, all the hype going round was that it's this big huge gourmand ice cream gelato thing. Not really, but weirdly, because of that, I think I like it more than I probably would have done. So that's pistachio. Next up is a twofer from the house, Map of the Heart. That's purple heart V5 and white heart V7. I think off the top of my head. Start with white heart. White heart is this kind of aromatic woody one. It's got the sweetness of them kind of notes. There might be lavender in it, but I think there's a bit of sage in it, and it's just this enveloped by all these woods. Sometimes it has this tiny hint of white chocolate about it, and it's really nice. Again, there's a surprise. And then the other one is a purple heart, which we kind of all know is like this Lolita Lempicka on steroids. It's got all the kind of the similar-ish notes. It's got it's got plum in it, this one, I think, violet, licorice. I think there might be anise in it as well, but it's all got this deep dark smokiness in there. The smokiness is quite prominent, and that, with all them kind of notes you kind of recognise and a little bit of fruitiness, makes this just into such a gorgeous one. And the musks are there, slightly different to that. I mean, it's not a clone, but it's, you know what I mean, it's got that kind of that feel about it. So it smells nothing like it, but you get reminded of it because of all them notes. And the violet and licorice throughout it is just gorgeous. So that is V5 and V7 from Purple Heart. Next up, I'll group all these together as well. See, it keeps everything looking neat and tidy, doesn't it? These are ones I've bought from Lizzie or been gifted from Lizzie. I will of course say which one. Missia from Chanel I bought. I think we all know Missia, that gorgeous again violet, rose, iris kind of fragrance. This is the EDP, so it's rich, it's got the vanilla, it's like a big powder bomb of a boudoir. It's it's got the fruitiness running through it. It is just one of the best of this sorts of DNA. And the next one I bought this year from Lizzie is Lilac Love from Amouage. Again, it's all one we're kind of familiar with. That lovely, beautiful, rich violet, the incensey feels, the resins, the vanilla, the kind of white chocolatiness. Again, this is one you do not spray a lot of, and it's like you'd imagine Amouage to do a slightly floral gourmand, isn't it? It's not particularly overly floral, it's not particularly overly gourmandy. It's just got all them magical kind of blends about it. It is beautiful. It's kind of, is it the first lilac gourmandy one I've come across? Maybe not, because it's dropped dissy, I suppose. I don't know where I'm going. And that's kind of got that gourmand, but this one's richer. I say there's the resins about it. It's a gorgeous one. So that's Amouage's Lilac Love. And then as little presents, apple brandy from Killian. Don't worry, it was only a little travel spray. It wasn't like a bottle. I don't think I'm that love. Yeah, but apple brandy on the rocks wasn't necessarily a love, and I do prefer apple brandy, but actually it's quite nice once in a while. It's what it says on the tin. It's kind of this apple brandy fragrance. I'm trying to remember apple brandy. The original one is much, well, there's no point comparing them. They're not alike. Don't buy them thinking they're alike. This is in that kind of cash grab liquors line, and it's all right. It's not worth the money by any means, let's face it, but it's all right. Next, for my birthday, Lizzie sent me Shea and Blues Scarlet Lily and Black Tulip. Just talked about that recently. It's like a lovely rich plum fruity delight. It is really nice. It's not the same as Elixir from Chiali, but they have a similar kind of story about them, and there's lovely muskiness about it. It's rich, it's dark, it's very wearable and easy going. And then Scarlet Lily, don't get, it's not a lot of lily in it, let's put it that way. In fact, in the opening and that, I found it weirdly, and I know this sounds weird, purpley, like a lilac or a hyacinth or something. And then it does get, you do get a bit of potentially what could be lily in there. And again, it's much fresher. Compared to the other one, this is a fresher, more spring day kind of lovely wear one. So that's Scarlet Lily and Black Tulip from Shea and Blue, and all of the above were from Elizabeth. And finally this year was from Claire, Dr. Claire Smith or whatever she is. She'll be linked somewhere. Where do I get out of here? And this one is oh god, I have no idea which way I came in or anything. I'm completely lost. She got me Chloe's Love. Now this one's long discontinued and goes for absolutely mental prices, and it's a lovely little partial. Now if you don't know this one, again, it's that kind of fruity violet rose one. It's kind of pinky and violet, powdery. It's not quite, you know, your Missy or whatever, but it's kind of what Chloe's version of that, and it is exceptionally lovely. It's also got a lovely kind of soft muskiness about it. Whereas a rose and violet one kind of goes, this one's a much pinker one. The violet is there, but to me it smells a little bit more pink, and obviously there's a little bit of fruitiness in there. A gorgeous one. So that was Chloe Love, and that was a birthday present from Claire. So now we're going to come to like the gifted section. All of the fragrances up front here have been gifted by the brands and that to try, but obviously there's still fragrances I've got this year. Anyway, so first up is L'Amboise, Scents of Wood, Cedar Mineral. Now this one was one I wasn't sure I was going to like before I sprayed it, because obviously it's woody and it's mineral. Anyway, yes, I've never really smelled a woody quite like this. Obviously I've talked about White Heart, but that goes in a very different direction. This one is an aromatic woody, but it's more, oh, little squirrel, more creamy woody, and the aromatic notes are a bit more noticeable. The lavender runs very much through it, and it's very peaceful, but the woods to me are more white, and you get this kind of, to me, a little more than I mentioned in the other one, of a white chocolatiness. There's also quite a bit of frankincense, which lifts it all up. in the mids, and it just, yeah, that mixing with the woods and the aromatic notes, it makes it such a wonderfully fresh, vibrant, just beautiful woody fragrance. So yeah, that's Cedar Mineral, L'Amboise, or Scent of Wood. So next up is from Oman Luxury, and that's a Zafar. It's a really difficult one to kind of describe, this one. Kind of opens with a kind of grapefruit apple, and you get the oud, and the frankincense slowly kind of comes through. But I'd say, to be fair, the citruses and the fruits start off quite vegetal actually. Wouldn't necessarily call them overly sweet. They add a sweetness to it, but more of a grounded sweetness. And as this one develops, the oud kind of moves to the bottom, and you get the more woodier chords. The grapefruit does sweeten up more as it goes through it with the apple, and the frankincense gives it this kind of aura around it. I mean, I'm not going to go through all the blooming notes, and there's obviously a nice muskiness. And then after a few hours, I'd say it's more of a kind of earthy patchouli, still with a hint of sweetness in there. Maybe some of that also comes from the frankincense, and it does last a long time. It is it's one I had to wear a few times to really start to appreciate it. Say, at first, a kind of vegetal feel in it, stuck in it, but actually that really works. Yeah, so that's a Zafar from Oud Luxury. Not Oud Luxury, Oman Luxury. Next up is from Kajal, and that's Massa. Apart from you can't help but not mention the bottles. The bottles are lovely sometimes. This is a kind of green, kind of glowing, transparent one. And this is, Massa is, how to describe it? It's plum mainly, but is it called a Maribella? But the yellow plums, which aren't as deep and kind of sweet as a plum, but it still adds a beautiful sweetness through it. Now, I'm not going to list all the notes. There's a lot of things going on. There's more fruits, there's woods, obviously, musks, but mainly it starts to develop after quite a fresh, vibrant opening into a woody one. I'd even say it's a little bit aromatic. There's a nice fresh green vibrancy, not overly green in a green grass kind of way, but in a herbaceous, that kind of sweetness running through it. But the plum's the star, and it stays from start to finish, and it dries down. Maybe some vanilla and benzoin in the base, and it just gives it this kind of smooth loveliness, a nice aura. It's one you could probably get away with on a warm day as well. So yeah, that's Massa from Next up is excuse my French, Belle, and they gifted me 2 fragrances to try from them. First up is, look at all these baby crows, lovely. First up is the musk, is it pure musk? Musk, anyway. And this is beautiful. It's kind of like a soft skin raspberry musk. There's a little bit of woody notes, but it mainly, obviously, the name, it focuses around the musks, and the musks are quite lovely, quite fresh. That kind of, a little bit of kind of baby musk, a little bit of that kind of laundry musk, and there is a kind of naughty skin feel in there as well. And with the raspberries, just as beautiful. It's very sensual. It's very refreshing actually as well, and it's just a really good musk. And then next is the ambery one, which was called Clim. I don't know. Again, I'm not French. Which is like an old school amber, which is obviously, it's got all the kind of ambery notes in it, spices. There might be a little bit of cumin in there, carnation maybe. It's kind of a little bit old school, meets modern again, in the sense that it's got enough sweetness in it to keep it modern, but it's primarily these beautiful kind of old school spices and woods, and it's kind of a cloves I think are in there. It's like what's it called? It's not like Chanel's cocoa. It's different, but it's that kind of old school, kind of beautiful ambery vibe, and I absolutely loved it. I think there's even, as it develops again, the modern touch, a little bit of a kind of cocoa-y feel in there. Now that doesn't make it chocolatey, it just adds the edge. Both beautiful, and that is from, wait for it, I'm reading my notes here so I try and get the name right. It is from Caramel Bed, which is an old hat. It's worth, I mean, I'm not advertising, but if you're interested in the more vintage kind of stuff, their website is fantastic. And finally, from Electimus, I must admit, I was very surprised to be on Electimus's PR thing for this. Don't get me wrong, they are a fantastic brand, and that's why I was surprised with all of them, to be fair. I'm not digging myself a hole there. I don't, why would you want me to talk about them? But yeah, anyway, Aquila, that one, I've already forgotten the name, but it's right. It's kind of, obviously the story behind it is quite celestial, and the bottle, oh my, the bottle is something. But the fragrance, now it's raspberry, it's leather, it's tons of kind of other stuff going on in there. The leather, no, before we get into it, no, it is not like Tuscan leather, not to me anyway. Sometimes the leather is it's quite rugged in it, a little bit green. There's quite a lot of greenness going on in it, and sometimes the leather is like a plush black, lovely smooth leather. Sometimes it's both, sometimes one kind of, it depends on the temperature, and obviously it's very hot at the moment and the smoother leathers come out. It's a one spray fragrance, yeah, but the raspberry kind of sparkles through it. There's a cardamom giving it a sparkle, so you could almost call it fresh, which is, you'd think for the DNA is quite unusual, but it does. It has a fresh pop to it, and it kind of dries down, and you get a little bit more of the geranium. The geranium, thank the Lord, is not too much, and it's not too herbaceous, it's not too metallic. It has a bit of sweetness in there, and then you're kind of left with this warm, woody, resinous base, little hints of the leather, and still the little bit of the raspberry does linger. But then, you know, we're talking 6, 7, 8 hours after. It's a musky, woody one. The patchouli is there throughout, but it shines more in the far dry down, a little bit earthy, not too much, and it's just lovely. You know me, I'm quite fussy with some of them notes, and I generally again enjoy this. So that's the Electimus Aquila Absolute. So yeah, that's just kind of what it is. It's a list of fragrances I bought this year or had coming in this year. Hopefully there's no kind of mistaking the ones that I've got gifted with the other ones, which a lot of people seem to make a huge mistake with. Their hauls and what they've bought this year always seem to have stuff that's been gifted to them, which they forget to tell us. Weird that, isn't it? Anyway, enough ranting. Yeah, I've been very lucky with some beautiful fragrances as gifts and stuff, and also a few blind buys, and a few buys obviously I've known about in there, and that's where I still think I've bought too many, but as you can see, it's not ridiculous actually. In other years it might have been double that and that. I am getting better at buying the things I truly want. A lot of sampling is good. I mean, it shouldn't even be advice. Sample, don't blind buy, it's mad. And make sure well, it's up to you what you do. I'm not your dad, but I'm trying to buy things I love, not just like a bit and stuff, so on. Anyway, enough waffle. This video, who knows how long it's going to be, but it's going to be too long. Thanks for watching. What about yous? What have you had coming in this year? Have you been mainly blind buying? Have you been testing, sampling? What's the favourite thing you've got this year? Alright folks, thanks as always. Bye.